After my first rag quilt tutorial got over 1 million views and inspired so many of you to start sewing, I had to bring it back but with a twist. Here's a breakdown of all my measurements. Save this so you can come back to it. I start by cutting out all my fabric pieces. I'll leave on the screen how much I bought of each fabric. For this quilt, I wanted it to be the same on both sides, so I used the same fabric for the front and the back. So that's why you'll see in the pattern that the blocks and the stripes are doubled, because we're using the same fabric for the front and the back of the quilt. And this does help with making your life a little easier when you're cutting everything out. One thing I do different with my rag quilts is instead of using batting and making it smaller than the actual piece, I use flannel, and these flannel pieces are cut to the same exact size as my other pieces. Starting with our blue section of blocks, lay your backing piece face down, flannel in the middle, and then another piece of fabric on top. Using my Hera marker, I'm marking an X on the top of the square. This gives you a guideline of where you're going to be sewing. I found this to be the fastest way to do it, just sewing one diagonal on all the squares, going back through and cutting the threads in between, and then sewing the other diagonal. Now all your squares should have an X sewn on them, and they're ready to be put in the rows. I stack mine up like this to keep them in order. Going one row at a time, you're picking up the first piece in the row and sewing it to the next piece. I clip those together, and remember, you're only sewing down one side. For this whole quilt, I'm using a 1/2 inch inseam, and make sure you backstitch when you start and stop. If you've never made a rag quilt before, it's a little hard to get used to because everything seems like it's backwards. All your seams are going to be facing outwards. Those seams that are facing out is the part that's going to be used to fray. Just keep repeating that first step until your whole row is sewn together. When all your rows are sewn together, you're going to press the seams flat. Lay out your rows in the way they're going to be sewn together, lining the rows up so they match at the seams. You'll want the back sides of the fabric facing each other with the open seams on the top and the bottom. Clip your fabric. Now we're going to sew it together using that same concept that we did for the 2 pieces. Now we're just doing 2 rows. Keep repeating that process until all your rows are sewn together and your seams are front facing just like this. Now moving on to the stripes, we're using the same sandwiching method that we did with the squares. Your back fabric, the flannel in the middle, and then your front fabric on top. Rather than doing an X to hold this one together, we're sewing a single line down the center of the fabric. You'll be doing the same process on all the stripes, and once this is done, you're ready to sew them together. This is the same concept we used with the squares, just a little bit bigger. Clipping together 2 of the stripes and sewing down with a 1/2 inch inseam. And once again, you're creating that front facing seam. Don't forget to backstitch when you start and stop. Once your 4 short stripes are sewn together, you're ready to attach them to the blue squares. Make sure you're lining up all your edges, not just the one you're clipping and sewing. This helps everything to be even in the end. As you can see, I have the back sides of the fabric facing each other. Lining everything up at the seams, I clip everything together and we're ready to sew. I found when making this quilt, you're basically just making it in blocks. We started with making a block out of the blue squares and then making a block out of the short stripes, and then we sewed those together. Now we're sewing together the long stripes. And once the long stripes are sewn together, you're just sewing together the 2 blocks that are left. So basically this quilt just consists of a few simple steps that are repeated over and over. And don't forget to backstitch when you start and stop on all these steps. Once the 2 main pieces of the quilt are sewed together, you're ready to sew all the way around the outside. You're going to want to make sure your seams are pressed flat. You can add clips to it like I showed right there. I decided not to for this one, but just make sure when you're sewing over those front facing seams, they're pressed flat. Once again, using a 1/2 inch inseam, I'm just sewing all the way around the outside of the quilt. To fray the quilt, you'll be making little cuts all the way around the outside edge and at all your exposed seams. I run a sweeper on mine to pick up extra threads before throwing it in the wash. Wash and dry it on delicate with some old towels and stop it in the middle of the dry cycle to clean out the lint catcher. Here's the finished product. If you recreate this, please tag me. I'd love to see it.